Hello there. Have you ever heard of the story about Goldilocks and the 3 bears? I bet you have. Well, the book I'd like to read to you has the same kind of storyline, but the roles have been reversed. You'll see what I'm talking about when I read Somebody and the 3 Blairs. The author's name is Marilyn Tolhurst, and the illustrations are by Simone Abel. Somebody and the 3 Blairs. One Sunday morning, in a small house on the edge of town, Mr. Blair, Mrs. Blair, and Baby Blair were sitting down to breakfast. "It's such a fine morning," said Mr. Blair. "Let's take a walk in the park." "What a good idea," said Mrs. Blair. "Feed the ducks," said Baby Blair. So they took their coats and a bag of breadcrumbs and set out for the park. While they were gone, somebody came to the door. Somebody knocked. And when no one answered, somebody tiptoed in. Do you see who that somebody is? You remember in Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, the one coming into the house was a little girl. In this story, it's just the opposite. In this story, instead of a little girl coming into the bear's house, it is a little bear coming into the people's house. He sniffed and sniffed. He looked at the breakfast table. "This food is too dry," said somebody. "This food is too noisy," said somebody. "Oh, but this food is just right." Can you tell what kind of food has him so excited? What do bears love to eat? That's right, honey. And it's sticking to his paws. He looked for somewhere to sit down. And you see he's licking that yummy honey right off of his paws. "This seat is too hard," said somebody. "This seat is too wobbly," said somebody. "But this seat is just right." Oh my goodness, he's managed to squeeze himself into the baby's high chair. He looked for something to play with. Oh dear, I think he's getting into the kitchen cupboard. Probably not a real good idea. "This game is too noisy," said somebody. It's really not a game, is it? No, it's a bunch of canned food. "This game is too cold," Do you know what he got into next? Yeah, that's a very small little refrigerator, isn't it? And all the food that's in the refrigerator is cold. In fact, I can see an ice cube tray down by his foot. That would be really cold. But this game is just right. Oh my. He's found the flour, sugar, eggs, and he's making a mess. He looked for something to drink. This rain is too hot, said somebody. This pond is too small, said somebody. Oh me, oh my. That's not a pond at all, is it? But this stream is just right. And the stream is kind of like a small creek or river. That's what he thinks the sink is. He looked for somewhere to sleep. This bed is too big, said somebody. This bed is too small, said somebody. But this bed is just right. He climbed into the baby's crib. It does look very cozy. When Mr. and Mrs. Blair and baby Blair came back from the park, they saw the breakfast table. What a mess. Even broke Mrs. Blair's teapot on the floor. Somebody's been eating my crunchies, said Mr. Blair. Somebody's been eating my Crispies, said Mrs. Blair. All gone, said baby Blair. But he doesn't look too unhappy about that, does he? They looked around the room. Somebody's been sitting on my chair, said Mr. Blair. Somebody's been sitting on my chair, said Mrs. Blair. Busted, said baby Blair. Oh dear, his high chair is in need of repair, isn't it? They went into the kitchen. Somebody's been emptying the cupboard, said Mr. Blair. Somebody's been raiding the fridge, said Mrs. Blair. Naughty, said Baby Blair. And he's right. Not a very nice thing to do. They went upstairs. Flood! Shouted Mr. Blair. Help! Shouted Mrs. Blair. Lot of water! Shouted Baby Blair. And look at the expression on his face. I think his mommy and daddy are pretty upset about the flooded bathroom, but he seems to be enjoying it, doesn't he? Almost like playing with your toys at a swimming pool. They looked in the bedrooms. It's a burglar, said Mr. Blair. It's a monster, said Mrs. Blair. Can you see why she said that? Those do look like monster footprints, don't they? It's a big teddy bear, said Baby Blair. There they found the culprit, snoozing away. It's escaped from the zoo, said Mr. Blair. It's escaped from the circus, said Mrs. Blair. It's escaped down a drain pipe, said Baby Blair. Somebody call the police, said Mr. Blair. Somebody call the fire department, said Mrs. Blair. Somebody gone home, said Baby Blair. Bye-bye. Come again and play tomorrow. You see who he's waving at? Yes. There goes the bear, and he's waving back at the little boy. Do you think he'll come back tomorrow to play? Well, it's kind of hard to say. Just have to use our imagination to answer that question. So, that was the story of Somebody and the Three Blairs. I'm glad you could enjoy it with me. We'll read another story again soon. And until then, I'll say bye-bye.